As a parent, your natural instinct above all else is to protect. But what do you do when your ability to provide and protect is taken away by an unjust system that bends its laws to aid the very person who poses the greatest threat? This is the traumatic story of 4-year-old Aniya Day-Garrett. In today's society, it seems that broken homes have become a common occurrence for young children. Such was the case of 4-year-old Aniya Day-Garrett, who was born to her mother, Sierra Day, and father, Michael Garrett, on September 2, 2013. Before there was ever a concern for her life, Aniya was considered to be one of the happiest and joyful little girls you could ever meet, with a smile that would make any dark day just a little bit brighter. At some point, the relationship between Aniya's mother, Sierra, and father, Michael, took a turn that caused them both to separate. Little did anyone know, this was the beginning of the nightmare for Aniya. As the parents moved on with their lives and built relationships with different partners, Deontay Lewis made his way into the lives of Aniya and her mother, Sierra. And according to testimonials from family members, this is when they first began to notice a change in Aniya's behavior. She slowly became more withdrawn and reserved. The upbeat and vibrant smile of a young toddler slowly began to fade as the joy was seemingly being sucked out from her body. At family events, relatives began to take notice that Aniya's frame was getting smaller and smaller. But at the time, they chalked it up to her thinning out due to growing taller. But this was far from the truth. Behind closed doors, Aniya was living a nightmare at the hands of her very own mother and shell of a man who'd stepped in to play the role of stepfather. At some point in September of 2017 during his visitations, Michael noticed bruises and scars on Aniya and became, quote, disturbed and concerned. And so he confronted Sierra about the wounds on his daughter's body, to which Sierra responded by cutting off his visitation and claiming they were out of state. To make things worse, Sierra was granted full custody of Aniya in October of that year after filing an order of protection for her and Aniya against the father, Michael. A judge would grant that order in November after Sierra testified in court that Michael had committed domestic violence, something that he vehemently disputes till this day. Michael filed for custody in December of that year, writing in an affidavit, "I truly feel as though our daughter is being abused at home, physically, mentally, and that her life could possibly be in danger." His pleas, however, were ignored, and behind the veil, the abuse continued. As Aniya attended daycare, staff there too began to notice several warning signs that something at home wasn't quite right. They witnessed a pattern of bruises, cuts, and scars on Aniya throughout her visitations, and at one point asked the 4-year-old directly where they'd come from, to which she responded and told the staff that her mother had shoved her down. Harbor Crest Child Care Academy, where Aniya attended, made internal incident reports of suspected abuse over a dozen times, but only reported one incident to the police. It is believed that at this time, the daycare was owned by a different owner. In May of 2017, the new owner, Tamika Robinson, called Euclid police and reported bruises and marks on Aniya, including one instance where she was bleeding from the ear. A report filed by staff said that Aniya told them that her mother, Sierra, kept saying that she was getting hurt at the park, but this was a lie. The report also stated that Aniya wanted to be hugged and held constantly, while asking the staff, "Am I being good?" A summary of the report and recorded incidents was put together by a Euclid officer, which detailed a lengthy history of constant abuse. Social workers from Cuyahoga County were also called to assess Aniya's well-being, and reports of abuse were again made by Aniya herself. Abuse that Sierra denied all the while. And on March 11th of 2018, authorities responded to a call that led them to the home of Sierra Day and Deontay Lewis that they shared at the Cultural Garden Apartments in Euclid, Ohio. There, examiners found the unresponsive body of 4-year-old Aniya Day-Garrett and rushed her to the hospital, but the medical staff pronounced her dead on arrival. The staff reported that they had surmised Aniya had possibly been dead up to 10 days prior to her ever arriving at the hospital. By the time she reached the medical staff there, she was skin and bones. Her eyes were wide open. Her mouth was open. She was bruised, fragile, stiff and cold. The official coroner's report says that she died from a stroke caused by a blow to the head. The examiner's office reported the state of her small frame suggests that her death was very slow and painful, as she lingered on for days after the initial blow to her skull. Sierra Day and Deontay Lewis were both arrested and placed on a $1 million bond. They both denied abuse and pled not guilty, but it took just under a day for the jury to return a verdict of guilty. Cuyahoga County eventually settled for $3 million in a lawsuit that was filed by Aniya's father, Michael. But no amount of money can be paid to reignite the flame that once flourished so brightly.
Impose the sentence that this case demands and listen to Aniya Day's voice.
Her voice was heard, and the sentence has been imposed. The mother of Aniya Day-Garrett receives life without parole in the death of her daughter. Sierra Day's boyfriend, Deontay Lewis, also received life in prison, but will be eligible for parole after 20 years.
As you can imagine, an emotional finale to a case that started just over a year ago when paramedics found Aniya's lifeless body in her mother's Euclid apartment. News 5's Jordan Vandenberg has covered this story since the beginning. He's live outside the Justice Center. Jordan.
Well, prosecutors say the judge's decision was fair and well thought out because it was Sierra Day who was abusing her daughter from the very beginning. And Aniya's father says her story is merely just beginning. He walked to the podium.
Yes, Michael Garrett.
And his impassioned statement was one part mournful.
Devastates my entire life, my family, and the whole entire world.
And another part resolute.
Lewis didn't care as he watched my daughter suffer for months because she was not his child. It was not his life. He did not care to help protect Aniya. So weak of a man.
Throughout Michael Garrett's impact statement, Sierra Day sat stoically, devoid of any expression or emotion or much of anything.
And I don't believe in 24 years I've seen a more callous disregard for human life. For that reason, she will see a penalty of life without parole.
And that's what saddens me the most about this case, that as human beings, we have a responsibility to one another, and they failed her miserably.
Day will not be eligible for parole, but Lewis will be after 20 years. Following a 6-day trial, the jury found them both guilty of aggravated murder for beating, starving, and neglecting Aniya. The 4-year-old girl weighed a mere 26 pounds when she died.
Aniya Day looked like an Auschwitz survivor, Your Honor. You could count each rib on that little body.
How could you torture and murder your own flesh and blood, your daughter? I did not harm her at all.
In a short statement, Lewis said he loved Aniya and never meant to hurt her. However, he did not have a sympathetic audience.
And I respectfully request that on March 11th of every year that they both sit in solitary and think about what they did to that child.
Aniya would have been 5 years old, so much life left to live. All of that is gone now, but never forgotten.
I'm thankful that some justice did come out of this.
May the soul of Aniya Day-Garrett rest in eternal peace. At least your long suffering has ended.